So when I retire, I want to live on an estate. But to me, an estate doesn't mean I want a big, huge, grand house. It means I want property, and I want a barn, and I want a tractor, and I want a little backhoe, and I want stuff to have fun with, and I want to have a pond. So what, in your opinion, is the difference between a mansion and an estate?
So a mansion doesn't necessarily need to be on acres and acres of land.
Mm-hmm.
A mansion could be actually inside of a neighborhood.
Yep. In fact, in some cases, there are neighborhoods with they're all
Lots
mansions.
of mansions.
Every one of them is a mansion.
So the biggest difference, I think, in my mind is when I think of an estate, I think of sprawling land, not necessarily a huge ornate building.
Yep.
Could be multiple buildings, maybe a guest house.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of a mansion, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be on lots of acreage.
Literally, I think mansion, more about the house.
Yes.
Estate, more about the property,
Right.
it is what I think. So this came from a listener question. This is Marjorie in Alpharetta, who says, on a prior show, you mentioned what distinguishes a luxury property from a traditional property, and we talked about price ranges. I'm not sure if you were involved in that discussion. You might have been. It seems familiar. The question is, what's the difference, this is from Marjorie, between a mansion and an estate? And she says, not that we can afford one, LOL. Who knows, maybe she can. And so let's talk about some differences, sort of the official from a real estate publication differences. And they say, the key features of a mansion are, number one, size. And I think you and I can both agree that we're talking about something that's significantly bigger than the average house. I would say the average house in Metro Atlanta is 2,400 square feet or maybe 2,600 square feet. I would say the average mansion is what?
Over 10,000 square
Over
feet.
10,000, and probably including the basement, so maybe 7,000 above and something in the basement. They also say that these homes tend to have luxury amenities such as grand entranceways and elaborate curved staircases and maybe marble or hardwood flooring, high-end finishes. I picture a mansion having appliances that cost like what a car costs.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Like a chef's kitchen.
Now, they also say that mansions tend to be architecturally more grand. Mm-hmm. And so it is true, when you look at a mansion from the street, sometimes you just go, wow. So as it goes into an estate, it says an estate is more extensive and comprehensive property, encompassing potentially a grand residence, but also extensive grounds, often with multiple structures, various amenities. They're designed for luxurious living in some cases and are typically owned by affluent individuals or families seeking a retreat from everyday life's hustles. But to me, an estate is not really for affluent families.
Right. It doesn't have to be.
Exactly. So they say the significant differences are land size. So how many acres would something need to have for you to consider it to be an estate? Because to me, 2 or 3 acres is not enough.
Yeah, and I think 4 might still be on the lower side. I think 5 is pushing estate style. But when I think of an estate, I also think of the ability to maybe have horses and a barn, like you mentioned. And I think at least 5 would be an estate. What do you think?
20.
Yeah.
But not doesn't all have to be usable. So like maybe some of it's a floodplain, but I would want an acre or so lake or pond on the property. I would want enough room for a house, maybe a swimming pool with a pool house, small pool house, maybe a little guest house somewhere, and then a barn or what I would really consider to be a workshop. It does say that an estate almost always has multiple structures, and they say guest houses, caretakers' quarters. Also says recreational amenities.
Okay.
So mansions can have recreational amenities, but in some cases they're the neighborhood amenities. They're not really They're not really the amenities of the particular house. So what would be recreational amenities you would need?
So I wouldn't need this, but I know my husband would love it. He would love probably to have a putting green, or some type of small par 3.
Maybe even a tennis court.
A tennis court for sure.
Maybe even a tennis court. That'd be great. So it says tennis court, swimming pools, equestrian facilities, all of that. It says estates generally provide privacy, and it says they can either be historically significant or not.